Thanks for joining us for part 2 of the FanTom 2. It's a tribute to Tom Daniel. Now, what you see here on the turntable is my tribute model to Tom. It's inspired by one of the drawings that he made back near the turn of the century. And you can find part 1 in the Tom Daniel Model Kits section, the playlist there on our website. And this, of course, is a continuation after the body was built to add the rest of the model. And so here's what we did in part 1. You can see that the entire model body has been completed with the accessory items that we've added to it as they are, structural features. And so we'll continue on now to show you how to add the rest of the parts and finish. This is, of course, the drawing on the lower portion here of Tom's drawing, and this is just to remind you of what we're trying to do. We used it as inspiration for the model that we're building here. And as a reminder, we showed you how to do what we call kit bashing. We took the elements of 2 different kits and we combined them together for a brand new model, which was inspired by that drawing, and we'll show you how we put that all together and then add the finishing touches here with a lot of accessory items, aftermarket parts, a lot of parts bin searching, and pieces of decals, even some custom ones to make something truly unique and inspired by Tom Daniel himself. Now we'll start working on the engine components, and as I'd mentioned, the 6-cylinder found in the Prowler has 3 exhaust ports on each side, which are exited out the side body of the car. So what I did was drill out the holes in the exhaust ports there, and you can see the beginnings of some tube stock headers that I made, and those will be exited out the fender wall. You see here the majority of the engine components. Now the basic parts there in light gray, they'll be assembled and put together and painted red. The rest of the parts there you see also are pointed in various shades of black and aluminum. And here's a look at the final engine completion on the left side, including a mock-up of the air cleaner duct there on the far left. But that will be removed so that we can place the engine later after we know that it all fits. Here's a look at the right side. It's a nice looking rendition of the Prowler engine, and you can finish it off because you'll still be able to see it if you do it the way that I do. The final components of the engine look like this, with the tube headers coming straight out the sides and exiting from the fender wall, and in place here completely enclosed with the radiator. I chose a dark red for the interior accents, and as you can see, the interior tub itself has been painted in a flat black. Although it's going to be hard to see through that chopped top, you can see there's plenty of ability here to provide some accents. The aluminum headrests and the chrome inserts there, along with the 2-tone seats and panels, make for a pretty vibrant interior. So with the frame painted similarly flat black, and also some alterations to the front end there to allow the Alfetta components to be installed, we're going to add the interior tub to the frame. Next, we'll detail the transaxle. You see the stub shafts there, the half shafts. Also notice that the recesses have been highlighted with a little black wash to bring out the detail, and it makes for a nice component. You see it all assembled here, along with the rest of the rear suspension components. The rear suspension is pretty tricky. It's probably the most difficult part of this Prowler kit. So I started with some slow setting glue, and then I put the rear hubs and connecting rods there into place and let it set up somewhat. And then I added the other side and finally added the additional components to the finished product, which you can see here. It goes together properly if you just take some time and use some slow setting glue to put it in place. To replicate the wheels in the drawing, I used these parts from J's resin wheels, and I also put some spacers in between the wheel, the stock wheels, and the new inserts from the resin wheels parts. And that's because I needed 3-bladed spinner knockoffs and 5-slot mags. So you see the little spacers here we used to give it approximate centering, and then the parts were cleaned up by adding some putty to close up the circular gap around the outside there, and then painted with a gloss white paint to prepare for the chrome, which was sprayed into position on the part there, so that we've got a nice look for the model, and mostly replicating the type of wheels that were on the drawing. When you're building something like this, you'll find that you need to do a lot of test fitting and mock-ups to determine positioning, etc. And I decided where I needed the front suspension for the model to go, and that also determined I needed to move the radiator a little bit with see that strip there, in order to accommodate the parts that are coming through the sidewalls of the body. You see here the radiator's been added, and we've mocked it up with the wheels, and that was done to determine the stance that I wanted and positioning of the front end pieces there. Also now, of course, you see we've decorated the sidewalls along to complement the seats, and that goes together pretty nicely. Next we'll stage these parts and get them ready for installation. We're going to install the completed engine next, but first we have to make sure that the drive shaft is in place. We'll put that into the rear end, and then we'll put the back end of the transmission into the front part of the drive shaft. And when you make modifications to your car, you may have to modify the length of the drive shaft. But now you see we've got this all installed, the engine is in place, and we've got a radiator hose here that goes on. Sometimes if you move the radiator, you have to modify that length. So keep those kinds of things in mind, and then we'll add the dashboard to the interior. Next, I'll add the custom headers to the sidewalls just past the frame there, so you can glue them on the frame and into the exhaust holes and the motor, and then they will exit out into the external exhaust pipes collectors on the outside. The body was painted, at least the front end was painted heavily with some pearl white. It's called Tester's White Lightning, and it's a metallic pearl white to give it a luster up front. Also, you see the tape there that's used to tape off that segment, and then we'll paint the rest of the body in a bright red. It's Tester's Revving Red for a little vibrant metallic red look. And so here you see the completed paint job. It's got similar markings to the original drawing, but it's got its own particular aura. Next, I sourced some decals from my parts stash, and you see the lightning decals there to set it off, much like the swoops on the original kit, or model drawing, I should say. And also some FanTom 2 custom decals that I used to implement the markings on the hood scoop and the license plate in the back. The windows are just some clear acetate cut to size and shaped to fit the window openings, and then they were sprayed with some smoke paint to give it a heavy tint and give that model a little of a mysterious look. I built some windshield wipers out of tube stock, some strip stock, and some square rod stock. And so here's the application of those sectioned lightning strikes emanating from the white lightning front end. You may also find that when you make modifications like this, you have structural issues that you hadn't thought of at first, like this back panel here with those huge ports for the exhaust. That's right, the Prowler has a nice big exhaust port section. So I had to fill it all in because, of course, the exhaust on this one go out the sides. So I used some more milliput, and I just featured it in there, sanded it all smooth, and finished it off. As you can see here, with the license plates installed, it makes for a nice finished edition on the back end. I needed a rear bumper, so I found an old bar that came out of a roll bar, and I just cut it off to length, and you see it installed here, painted in gloss black, ready for its chrome plating. For the grill on the model, I simply used a drawing program to make a decal. I just used some simple geometric shapes and pieced it together to replicate the old Alfetta front end. You see some more parts box sourcing here. The headlights, they're on toothpicks so that I could detail the ridges on the outside of the lenses for chrome bezels. And then you got some yellow turn signal lights that were sourced from the top of a semi-truck on the stocks that I'd built earlier. And of course, another roll cage used for the front bumper. You can barely see through the smoked windows there, but that's by design. But as you can see, all those little spare parts and a little touch-up on the grill, and she'll have a nice look to the front end. Again, that front bumper painted gloss black, getting ready for some chrome treatment. I had to construct the steering mechanism there. You see the rods from rod stock and some strip stock. Those are all just pieced together and super glued together. That'll be assembled then, and we'll give it a coat of chrome paint. As you can see here, that front bumper has been chromed along with the back bumper. The tail lights have been sourced from the parts box and installed, and as we can show you too, the side exhaust has been chrome plated, and we'll put those all together and install the front suspension, which is basically the last part. Well, look at that. With all the parts chromed that are required, you see the exhaust there coming out in front of the rear tire. Also, we've added an antenna, just like the drawing, and there's some tiny little mirrors on the A-pillar posts, just like the original drawing, but they're a little bit larger. Nonetheless, you get all these components together now, all the chrome parts against the dark red and front end contrast with the black grille and hood scoop, and you've got yourself a pretty amazing looking rendition of the original drawing with a new twist. This one's street ready, and you get to see it from all angles. And as you can see, if you're very careful, you can put one of these together. It takes a little time and effort, but wow, you can come up with a one-of-a-kind. You can mix and match parts from different kinds of kits, the accessories that go to each one to make it truly unique. And if I were you, I'd find a couple of kits and kit bash them together and put one on your shelf.
Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.